Welcome to Becoming an Author. I'm your host, Bethany Stahl. I am a full-time self-published author, and this podcast is going to bring self-publishing tips and tricks to you. These topics are for everyone writing in any genre, from prospective authors to experts. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Hi, my fellow self-publishers. I am so excited for today's episode, and I'm still in a little bit of disbelief. So, having an author career is something that I never ever imagined having in my entire life. It's not something I ever pictured, or anything that I could have ever even dreamt about. I don't think I ever considered being an author, illustrator, because to me, that wasn't even a real job. It wasn't even an option. So to be here, I'm really humbled that this is what my life has turned out to be, and I'm so grateful for every single experience I've had along the way. That being said, this week has been the absolute most monumental week of my life as an author. So I got 2 bulk orders, each of 1,000 books. So that means just from 2 orders, I sold 2,000 books in 1 week. The first time it happened, I definitely thought it was a glitch, and if you guys are in my self-pub Facebook group, I announced it, and I was sort of hesitant to even announce it because I'm like, you know what, this isn't real. But I got reports sent to me. The reports showed accurate. I refreshed the page 100 times. Everything was reported. Everything was there, and it was real. So the second time it happened is when I just went to the bathroom and started vomiting. I almost still felt like the first time wasn't even real. So when it happened a second time, that meant that it wasn't a fluke. Someone didn't order 100 and by accident added an extra 0. It was purposefully done, and it happened twice. So a few of you asked, oh, well, where are these sales coming from? How do you know they were one order? And what is all the details of that? So I'm going to share absolutely everything because I wholeheartedly believe you can do this too. I just really kicked off my author journey a little over a year ago. So I have not been doing that this long. I am not an expert, but I have learned things, and these things are working. So as I'm learning, I want to share them because if they're working for me, then they can work for you. So I always say this, and I want to say this now, that it does not matter what your book is about. As long as you find your audience, you can be successful. And I see a lot of people see successful books, about certain topics or trendy things, and it's just not about the trend. Of course, trends are fun to ride on, but when you're creating your author career and you're creating your author voice, you want something that's really specific to you. So if you are all about numbers, your books are about numbers. For me, I'm all about the environment, so my books are about the environment. Someone else may all be about silly stories, so all their books are going to be silly. No matter what your niche is, you just want to stick to that, and your book will succeed if you really believe in it and you put the work behind it. I work non-stop, and finally, recently, it's actually been really strange because I'm starting to work less and less, and my books are selling more and more. And this is, I guess, what the dream is, to sort of have your books sell themselves. And it's been really fun to take a week off, and I still make the same amount of sales as when I did, hustling all day long on social media, working on advertising, spreading it out there. So what's really great is that You don't need to scream at people all the time to buy your book, download your book, do this, do this, do this, do this. Because when I was working really hard to tell people, hey, buy my book, download my book, it's free right now, please leave me a review, please leave me a review. Did you leave me a review? I really would love your review. It would be amazing if it was 5 stars. Please, 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 please. Hey, did you leave me a review yet? Let me message everybody I know and tell them. And well, yeah, this could get your book getting some reviews. I don't do that anymore because I've really found it was a waste of time. So the benefits that come from heavily pushing your book are not worth the amount of time you have to put into it. If you're a patron in my Self-Pub Squad, you probably have seen that I am the biggest ambassador of my zombie method, and I swear to God it works. I don't know what the, marketing words or the marketing strategy is necessarily behind it, but it works. And I think there's something to be said about it. And I'm still researching it and still testing it. And literally every time I do a zombie, it's incredible. The results are incredible. And that's, I think, what launched me into having this massive pop of 2,000 sales. So let's get into the details of how did that even happen. So my books are print on demand. That means that I do not bulk print. I don't do the ordering from China or getting a bulk printer within my country or anything like that, because I have run businesses before. The authorpreneur is not my first time with the entrepreneur side of life. So I have dealt with fulfilling orders and packaging and shipping and writing handwritten notes and signing books and all the things with orders is overwhelming. And in the past, I spent, 2 to 3 days a week just on shipping and going to the post office or scheduling a pickup. I actually had to go to the post office instead of a pickup because I had too many orders to fit in the truck. And when I took it to the post office, I actually shut the post office down for the rest of the day. They put a sign up and said we are closed early, which was insanity. But because I had past experience with shipping items and fulfillment, I knew I didn't want to do that anymore with my books. And while yes, you can make a ton more royalties if you print and order in bulk and all of those fun things, the benefit of that extra money compared to my time and sanity, to me personally, was not worth it. And this is something that I highly recommend you consider on an individual level. In no way, shape, or form am I saying that bulk printing is not the way to go and pod is. Just for me personally, pod is absolutely way better for my lifestyle. I love taking a ton of time off just to relax, and then I love working nonstop for weeks at a time. I have a really unconventional way of living, and the flexibility is something that I absolutely love, and not dealing with customers or bent books or orders getting shipped to the wrong place or anything like that was far beyond worth a royalty cut for my sanity. I also don't want to store the books or anything like that. I just don't want anything to do with it. So pod for me is the way to go. And I always consider that the royalties that I'm missing are just going to employees. So I imagine that, Amazon technically works for me. They're doing the printing, the shipping, the fulfillment. When something goes wrong, I can tell them, hey, what's going on? And get an answer and get a refund or whatever needs to be done. And if a customer has a problem, they go straight to Amazon. I don't ever know. So that level of relaxation is worth it to me. So I use Amazon KDP for my paperback and my ebook, and I am exclusive with Amazon for my ebook. I use ACX for my audiobook, and I use IngramSpark for my another paperback version and hardcover. So why I do Ingram for a paperback and KDP for a paperback is because Ingram is the secret hero of self-publishers. And I feel like Ingram gets a lot of crap in a bunch of Facebook groups I see. And to me, they're that secret weapon that I just don't understand why more people aren't taking advantage of. So how I get away with having two paperbacks is I didn't know this when I first started publishing. I thought I could only list one version on Amazon and another version on Ingram. I didn't know I could have two different paperback versions. So what I do is I do not click the expanded distribution checkbox when I'm creating my book on Amazon. Then I will put the title on IngramSpark, and that allows all the expanded distribution that would have normally been ordered on Amazon to be fulfilled by IngramSpark. When Amazon gets backed up, the orders go to IngramSpark, and IngramSpark is a distributor, which means libraries, schools, bookstores all can order from Ingram. And bookstores don't want to order from Amazon because, as you probably know, there's a lot of beef with Amazon taking over and small local business sort of being unable to keep up. And I totally understand that. But as self-publishers, we also are small businesses and we have to utilize our resources. So bookstores are awesome. And when I very first started really getting my feet wet with publishing, I received an award for Save the Ocean, and I was brought to a local bookstore to give a reading and answer questions. The most amazing part is my session was filled mainly with adults, and not just adults, but other authors, because they wanted to know what the heck I was doing to make a living off of publishing. And it was really unexpected because I read my book Save the Ocean, and then I'm like, are there any questions? And all the questions were about self-publishing from the adults. So it was really cool, and it turned into a workshop for authors after the reading where I was helping them out, and the bookstore manager actually came over and was like, oh my gosh, you have to teach authors that we work with how to do this because you're the only one who's doing it right. And that shocked me because I really, again, was like, unsure of what I was doing. Was I even doing things right? That was a compliment. So I started teaching how I set up my title. So the bookstore said they really do love ordering from IngramSpark, and that's one of their go-to places to order from. They also said that their biggest pet peeve is when authors don't use IngramSpark and they have to resort to ordering from the author or from Amazon. So I know that last statement is probably slightly controversial because I know a lot of people do sell their books to bookstores from their own person, and that's totally fine. I am not saying you can't do that. I'm not saying that's not a valid way of selling at all. This is just this one particular bookstore's opinion. So don't freak out if you're like, oh no, I wanted to sell the bookstores. Don't worry. This bookstore just had a very, very strict policy, and they did it, but they did not like doing that. All right, so talking about Ingram settings is what we are going to discuss for the rest of this episode. So What should you set your price at, your discount? Should you allow returns? And what does all of this mean for you? This is the most important step, and I think this is the most crucial step to actually getting sales, getting your book out there in other distributed formats to bookstores or libraries or schools. So this part is important, and it has a lot of decisions to make, because no matter what you choose, there is so many variables behind it that can affect how your career will go. So first off is the price. You want your book priced to sell. So you want to see what other books in your format with the same page count are going for. So if children's books are all going for $15, then set your book around $15 or whatever that number may be. And do this for each version. So your paperback is not going to be priced the same as your hardcover and vice versa. So there's also different costs associated with each different format. So you may have to charge more for your hardcover just because that is more expensive to print. Once you get your cost for your book, you are then going to get to choose a discount. I do recommend going with the 55% discount option, which is recommended. It's recommended because this is industry standard, and this is what people are going to expect. If you do a lower percentage, while yes, that may be exciting because you're going to get more royalties, bookstores won't be as willing to buy your book. And I have been told by bookstores that they would not have bought my book if it was discounted any less than it was. So you have to make sure that you're putting that discount that buyers are expecting. I have had a ton of bulk orders come through Ingram, and I guarantee you I would not have made those orders if I didn't give the 55%. And to be devil's advocate here, if I put it at 30%, I wouldn't have gotten those bulk orders. Sure, I'm still going to make sales on Amazon. I'm sure going to make probably smaller sales to libraries or somebody who really, really wants the book. But I'm not going to have those huge bookstore orders of 200 books, 300 books, 500 books. I just had the 2 orders of 1,000 books. So those big orders wouldn't happen if my discount wasn't as great as it is. And they're going to compare you to other books. If you wrote a book about a bird and somebody else has a book about a bird and they're both lessons of friendship, they're going to choose, okay, well, these books are pretty similar. They have a similar message. Let's look at the comparison. If we stock this one's selling a little better. However, it is not a good discount. It's only 30%. But this bird book, it's pretty comparable in sales, but they have the 55% discount. We can make a lot more money if we sell this book. Let's take a gamble on that one. So you want to be the one that they choose to gamble on, and they may choose a book separate from yours simply for the price. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if you have all these great things going for you. That discount is a huge factor, and it will turn people away. So the next option you will have is your returns. And this is so important because this is the part that can get you in big trouble. If you decide to do returns, you are personally financially responsible for those returns. Okay? So that's a really scary statement because either way, you're going to be charged for the book returns. I know this is really confusing and it doesn't make sense at all, but this is how it unfortunately works. So why would somebody choose to do returns in the first place? If you do not allow returns, again, bookstores aren't going to buy from you because they want that safety of returning your book. Basically, they're buying your books on consignment in their mind. So when somebody goes, okay, you know what? We're going to order 200 of your book. and we're going to see how well they sell. Okay, well, they are selling a heck of a lot less than they were betting on. They're not doing great. Sales are down. They're going to go ahead and say, you know what? We're going to send 50 of those back. We don't want them. Bookstores will like that option because they don't want to get stuck with stock that they're unable to sell. And if your goal is to potentially be in bookstores to have these bigger sales, you will want to say yes, otherwise you won't be considered. And this is in general. Of course, there is an exception to every single rule. Of course, I'm sure somebody with a small discount and no returns could be still bought by a bookstore, but we're talking about in general and your best chance. So there is two options for returns. You can say yes, deliver, or yes, destroy. These are two big differences that you will also want to consider with you and your goals. So first is yes, deliver. This means that you want any books that are returned to Ingram sent to your house. This means if somebody sends back 500 books, 200 books, any amount of books, you are going to have those sent to your door. This could be a good thing because you can take those books and resell them on your website or at fairs or at school visits. However, it can be a bad thing because you can also get stuck with a ton of your books, and there's no guarantee of what condition they are going to arrive in, which is a little scary. So while they should be arriving in good condition, you never know. You are going to be charged the wholesale cost of your book. So what that means is, let's say you have your hardcover set at $20 and you have a 55% wholesale discount. That means that's a $9 wholesale cost. So the retailer, the bookstore, is going to pay $9 to purchase your book. If they return that book, you, the author, are going to be charged back the wholesale price of $9. And then if you want it returned to you, you are going to have to pay shipping and handling fees. Those fees are $2 per book in the US. If you live outside of the US or internationally, that's going to be $20 per book in shipping and handling. So if you live outside of the US, you absolutely do not want your books delivered because you are going to be paying so much for them that you're never, ever, ever going to make a profit on it. It's going to wreck you, and you just don't want to do that. If you do live in the US, it is an option for you to have them delivered and for you to resell them if you think they are in good enough quality. So it doesn't mean these books are used and returned. Quite typically, they are overstock. But if you think, you know what, I haven't gone to school fairs. Currently, we are in a pandemic. I had a ton of school visits and fairs and events scheduled for this year throughout this entire year that have been canceled. My in-person sales this year were supposed to be outstanding, and I did not get to do that. So currently I do have a bunch of books for those events that I was planning on taking that I am just sitting on, and hopefully one day I will have an event to sell. But at this point, I am in the hole a little bit with those particular books. So if you choose the yes, destroy option, this means that your returns are going to go back to Ingram and they're going to destroy them. They're not going to send them back to you. I've been trying to research what do they mean by destroyed, and the general consensus is they believe they turn them back into pulp and recycle them. However, I don't know if that's 100% true or guaranteed, so I'm saying that's the consensus. That's not necessarily 100% what happens. Regardless, it kind of sucks to think about your books being destroyed, especially if they're being sent back in large numbers. So you will still be charged the wholesale cost of every single book returned. but there are not going to be those shipping and handling fees. So this could be more cost effective depending on your goals. If you are planning to have all these events being in person, you know that, hey, if I pay $11 for a book to come back to me, I can resell that book for $20 at one of my events. That's going to work out just fine. Then delivering may be an option you want to consider. But if you don't have in-person events, your in-person sales are not that great, if you don't have a way to sell in person, you are not going to want to pay all those extra costs to get stuck with your books and then have just paid to sit on them. You'd be better off choosing destroy. Either way you choose very carefully. Now, in saying this, my personal experience, I have not had many returns at all. I think throughout my entire time with Ingram, I've had no more, collectively in the past year, more than 10 to 15 returns. It's very, very, very slim and rare that it happens, at least in my experience. I have seen others say that they've had a ton of books returned and they've gotten hurt really bad financially by the returns. For me, typically the sale will pay for and cover if there's any returns. I just get less money from it, but I'm still profiting overall. I know I just covered a lot, and it's a lot to digest, and it is a lot to think about and understand. And as authors and self-publishers, we're also business owners, so you have to choose what is the most beneficial to you and your business. You can do it. I believe in you, and I will see you all next time on Becoming an Author. Don't forget, if you want to stay engaged after the show, you are more than welcome to check out my YouTube videos on youtube.com/c/BethanyStall, where you can watch videos, tutorials, and even listen to the podcast. You can also join my authors Facebook group, where I have organized all of this information into different learning units, so you can go along at your own pace and check in with different learning units and learn more about being an author, just in case you missed something. I also do have a Patreon page where you can get early access to my podcast, documents, and tips and tricks that I share specifically to Patreon, so you get all these little extra goodies if you want to help support me giving out all this free advice. I will see you all next time on Becoming an Author.